How's it going, everyone? It is Mr. M, and I am here today with part 2 of my year-end list. This is my top 10 albums of 2019. Um, just like I said in the last video, this is my list, not yours. If you don't like the list that I've made, go ahead and make your own. It is not that difficult to do. And let's just roll right into it. At number 10, this is Necrodrunks with Terminal Perversion. Put out on Head Split Records, both the CD and the tape. I don't know if there's an LP version yet. But this is absolutely punishing grindcore with some death metal thrown in there. Now you can tell from the album artwork, some of the lyrics when you listen to it, and the song titles like Into Eternal Queef, Peep Show Massacre, Freaky Fuck Fiesta. You know, they aren't taking themselves super seriously, and they're definitely being super grotesque and over the top. But don't let that take away from the music. This is a super punishing record, like I said. You know, definitely one of the better grindcore bands and records to have come out recently. And they're from Portland, Oregon, too, which is that Pacific Northwest area is just a cesspool of a breeding ground for death metal and grindcore and death doom. So if you haven't checked out Necrodrunks and you're a fan of grindcore, definitely do. Terminal Perversion is not a bad place to start either. Next up, number 9. This is Buried Deep in a Bottomless Grave by Witch Vomit. This is a death metal band from the Pacific Northwest. I believe they're from Portland, Oregon as well. And it was put out by 20 Bucks Spin. Honestly, do I even need to say anything more than that? You know, 20 Bucks Spin absolutely killed it this year. Not just with death metal, but with the black metal and traditional metal releases that they put out as well. And Witch Vomit is absolutely no exception. You know, the riffs on here are absolutely killer. It's American death metal with glimpses, that's a terrible way to say that, with bits of Finnish death metal thrown in there as well. And the only thing I don't like about this record is how short it is. It's 7 songs and right around 27, 28 minutes. And every time I finish listening to it, I want more, and I can't have more. Now, I either have to listen to this on repeat or go back to Scream from the Tomb Below or Poison Blood, I think was what their EP was called. But, yeah. Witch Vomit with Buried Deep in a Bottomless Grave coming in at number 9. Next up, we have The Nothing by Korn. I go back and forth between this album and their previous album, The Serenity of Suffering, as to which I prefer most. But regardless of that, I'd say that those two albums are the best, in my opinion, that they've done since the late 90s, early 2000s. Obviously, you're not going to get Follow the Leader or Issues or any of that early stuff on here. But this is Korn putting out a solid Korn album in 2019. You know, it's a great new metal record, super heavy. You know, you got songs like Cold, Idiosyncrasy, You'll Never Find Me. You got some of the more arena type sing-along songs like Can You Hear Me? You know, musically it's absolutely heavy. Definitely, you can definitely tell it's a Korn album when you listen to it. And lyrically, it is super heavy as well. You know, their vocalist, Jonathan Davis, his wife and mother both died. I think they both died last year too. So he really took that pain and suffering and put it into lyrical content. And you can tell from listening to this record that he is going through a lot of pain. And, you know, he put a lot into this record as well. You know, and fucking solid record. I love this. The Nothing by Korn. Next up, number 7. A very polarizing release. This is Amo by Bring Me the Horizon. Very much a pop-oriented record. You know, they started going more in a pop-driven direction on their last album, That's the Spirit. And for the most part, this is a pop record. You know, you definitely have some songs like Wonderful Life and Mantra that lean more towards their older style. But then you got songs like Ouch, Medicine, I Apologize If You Feel Something, Nihilist Blues with a guest feature from Grimes. You know, this is just another step in the evolution of Bring Me the Horizon, and I absolutely fucking love it. You know, especially the way that they will balance. Like they put Mantra as the second song and then Nihilist Blues as the next song. So you go from more of not a traditional Bring Me the Horizon sound, but like something off of Sempiternal or That's the Spirit to something that they hadn't done before with a song like Nihilist Blues. And that sort of dichotomy of it makes this a great listen, to me anyway. And next up, number 6. This is Avantasia with Moonglow. This is a record that I've not seen a lot of people talk about at all. Toby Sammet from Edguy, he is the mastermind behind Avantasia. And Avantasia is the symphonic metal band right now. You know, Sonata Arctica also put out a record this year, but I didn't think it was anywhere near as good as this or any of their previous stuff. And you know, it's over an hour and 15 minutes long, I think, so it's almost a double album. I know for some people this would be a bitch to get through, but for me, you know, I love symphonic metal, and I think the symphonic elements in it make the record seem like it's going by faster, even though it's not, because you know, their last 3 records have all been over an hour long, and certain songs in particular, they just seem to fly by from how well they are orchestrated and written. You know, I know a lot of people do talk about Avantasia, but it's always like later. You know, people aren't ever talking about them when they put out a record, which is kind of unfortunate. So, yeah, if you like symphonic metal, give Avantasia a listen. Give Moonglow a listen. Hopefully you won't be disappointed. Next up, number 5. This is Motionless in White with Disguise. Their 5th album, put out on Roadrunner Records. And I guess this is more of a change in sound as well for them. They ditched more of their electronics that they had, which I always liked the electronic style that Motionless in White had because it was more of an industrial sound. But when I first got this record, I actually thought that they had completely eliminated it with the exception of 2 songs. But as I kept listening to it more, I found it just layered in with the music, which sounds pretty cool listening to it more and more. They got those callback songs, like there's Undead Ahead Part 2, which is a callback to their first record. Thoughts and Prayers, Holding on to Smoke, Another Life. They got that one joke song that they've done, like the last couple of records they've thrown in a song that's like a complete joke, basically. Broadcasting from Beyond the Grave, which no means a bad song, but you can definitely tell that it's not as serious as other songs on the record. And yeah, they're straying more away from their metalcore sound, but the sound that they have now is a sound that I kind of hope they stick with for a little bit, because it is a fucking good one. Next up at number 4, the highly anticipated album from Cattle Decapitation. This is Death Atlas. That album cover is one of the best that is on a record this year. Their first record in 4 years, and they keep going in a direction that is a lot more towards... They basically are a death metal band at this point. Now, there's still grinding elements to it, and I think there always will be. Just because they're always going to have that style that they did in the past. But this is very much a death metal record. There's like 3 or 4 interludes in here, so it kind of breaks up the record, which is nice. You know, you got the first 2 singles, One Day Closer to the End of the World and Bring Back the Plague. Death Atlas, the closing track, is incredible. It's also the longest song that they did at over 9 minutes. You know, the Geocide, which is... It's the second track, but it's the first song because the anthropologic... That's not right. The anthropogenic end transmission, you know, that's just an intro. Travis Ryan is one of my favorite vocalists, and that sort of melodic screaming that he does and I think he started doing that on Monolith of Inhumanity, but he's really refined that here. You know, it doesn't really sound like screaming, which I know at times it did on their previous 2 records. You know, on some parts it almost sounds like he's singing, even though I know he's not. But it's still a solid record, a great addition to their discography. And they're a great live band too. I unfortunately didn't get to see them on this recent tour that they did, but I saw them when they did Summer Slaughter tour. And I've seen them a couple times before that as well, and they absolutely killed it. Next up, number 3. What a monster of a fucking album. This is Devourment with Obscene Majesty. They got Robert Rujos, that's not his fucking name, Ruben Rujos, I think is his name. They got him back on vocals. He's sounding as brutal as ever. This is their first album in 6 years, so obviously anticipations were high, and they did not disappoint. This is just filled with absolute slamming, brutal death metal goodness. You know, songs like A Virulent Strain of Retaliation, Cognitive Sedation Butchery, the second song, is my favorite song. There is a breakdown, slamming breakdown, whatever you want to call it, towards the end of the song that really fucking breaks my neck whenever I'm listening to it. And then you got Arterial Spray Patterns, Xenoglossia, Sculpted in Tyranny. It's 10 songs, around 50 minutes, which I think is normal for a Devourment record. And this is a welcome addition to their discography. It sounds so goddamn good. Now, I wish they would tour on it, because I would love to see them eventually. Next up at number 2, Fetid. Yet another band from the Pacific Northwest that was put out by 20 Bucks Spin. Steeping Corporeal Mess is the album. This album reminds me of Torture Rack. The way that it's produced, the way that it sounds. You know, this album's a bit longer than the stuff that Torture Rack has done. You know, it's only 5 songs and it's just over 30 minutes, so the songs are definitely on the longer end, obviously. But this is some straight up sewer death metal, you know, caveman sewer death metal. You know, all 5 of these songs are super fucking good. I need to get this on vinyl, but yeah, this just, I'll leave it at that. It's a death metal band from the Pacific Northwest that was put out by 20 Bucks Spin, so give it a listen. And at number 1, this should come as absolutely no surprise, but what I will say, if you watch my channel, if you know me in person, if you've spoken to me at all, whether it's in person or through the internet, you know I'm a huge fan of the Colorado metal scene, which is where I am from, so it obviously hits home more to me than anyone else who isn't from Colorado. But even with all bias aside, this record is still my favorite of the year, and one of my favorites that's come out this decade. This is Hidden History of the Human Race by Blood Incantation. I've been hearing these songs live for over a year before the album actually got put out, and to finally have been able to be able to listen to this, not just on vinyl, but in a completely recorded form, whether it be on CD or tape, you know, it's an absolute treat, and it blew any expectations I had out of the water for this record. It's only 4 songs: Slave Species of the Gods, the Giza Power Plant, Inner Paths to Outer Space, and the very lengthy Awakening from the Dream of Existence to the Multidimensional Nature of Our Reality, Mirror of the Soul. And just like that song title, that song is long. It's 18 minutes long and takes up the entire B-side. And goddamn, this record is just fucking good. You know, believe the hype. This, from Interdimensional Extinction to Star Spawn to Hidden History of the Human Race, this band, in my eyes, can do no wrong. You know, it's atmospheric, it's brutal, it's heavy. There's some ambient stuff, especially on that last song. And it just all brings this record together. And I'm super happy to finally have been able to own this thing instead of just being able to rely on live shows for hearing these songs. So, put out on Dark Descent Records, and in Europe it was put out on Century Media Records, which I know a lot of people were giving the band shit about, but seeing that the fact that the band got so big that they needed to be put out on 2 labels, I think is absolutely killer. And that is going to conclude my year-end list. No, you can't fucking have this. Thank you all for watching. Thank you all for commenting and subscribing. This is Jinx. She appears in my videos a lot. I will catch you all in the next year. And I know that's a fucking overused joke, but yeah, thanks for commenting, liking, subscribing. Links to everything will be down in the description below for you to check out. And I will catch you whenever the next video is. Peace.